I'm Kaarthik. I'm a senior threat researcher at K7 Computing. I'm here to share my thoughts on the challenges or the cybersecurity challenges for MSME. I'd like to start this presentation with a simple quote. So this is a quote by one of the former directors of FBI. So it says like there are only two types of companies, those that have been hacked and those that will be hacked. So what is the underlying crux of this quote? So companies should always strive to put cybersecurity in the forefront, like a day, though you're not hacked today, doesn't mean that it will not happen anytime soon. So, for example, let me give you a simple example. Like you have a spare wheel in your in the boot of your car. So you may not use it 99% of the time, but you would use it only when the actual need occurs, or you would require it only when the need occurs. So, and this also says that we should not be prepared. I mean, we should not be looking at just securing our infrastructure or our cyber assets, but we should also be able to respond to any cyber attack. So that is the basic outline of, basic crux behind this presentation and this quote. So there's a general myth or a general misconception amongst smaller organizations, or that I might not be a lucrative target to a cyber attacker. So I might fly under the radar of a cyber attacker. That is not definitely the case. Like I would call it that a certain percentage of smaller organizations that have this belief, I find this to be a flawed belief, because a target to a cyber attacker is definitely a target. So big or small, it doesn't matter. Like I might have the tools required to attack a bigger corporation or a bigger organization, and at a later point of time, they might get outdated, but I could still find targets or soft targets for those outdated attack tools or the attack arsenal that I have. So big or small should not be evaluated based on the size of the company, but based on what you have or what you stand to lose. So based on this flawed belief, you should not, an organization should not, think that my cyber expenditure is not warranted and I should cut down on my expenses on cybersecurity. So think of these as investments to protect your cyber assets. So what would you value it? So if you're going to lose on your clientele, or if you're going to lose up on your the downtime of your service, or if you're going to lose up on your intellectual property, those should be valued against the cybersecurity costs that are involved. So if you're a good rapport between a client is more valuable than the cost that is spent on a cybersecurity. So along these lines, we published a cyber threat monitor report sometime back. So this, just to give a rough idea, like how many blocks specific to just MSMEs. So there were 78 million global threat events that were targeted just at small and medium-sized businesses. So this puts in a perspective like no one is actually safe or not looked up in the cyber attackers' radar. So for every cybersecurity breach or any attack, is there a cost involved? People would probably say there isn't any cost involved. Like my machines could get infected, my network could be down, or I could lose service for my clients could lose my service for some time. But every cybersecurity, so all these are actual costs that typically add up to a cybersecurity breach. So there was I think this should have been mentioned in the previous presentation also. So there is a Cisco study that says around small and medium businesses lose around 3.5 crores of, a cybersecurity breach is the loss of a cybersecurity breach is valued at 3.5 crore Indian rupees. So how is that value arrived at? So it doesn't necessarily translate to the actual cost. So there are two types of losses. So you can quantify a type of loss, and you can there is a loss that you cannot quantify. So what are quantifiable losses? So suppose you face a cyber attack. There is definitely a downtime that happens at your business. So that is a crucial period of time wherein you are not able to provide services to your customers, or you're not able to tend to your clients, or you are not able to respond to your clients, or your support your clients. And in case of a ransomware attack or something like that, you would probably lose the data that is present on the affected servers. If the attack happened on a server, then you'd probably lose the data on that. Then there could be websites that could be compromised, or servers, data servers, or external facing servers that could be compromised. So bringing them up again to a running position, that could take a lot of time. And the loss in business during those times, those are quantifiable. Apart from that, people can also, attackers can also exfiltrate data that is present in the network, or in the machines that they have infiltrated. So data like your financial information, your intellectual property, your client details, or your personally identifiable information from your either of the people that are working in the company, or people who have any relationship with the company. So all these data are at risk when a cybersecurity breach happens. And there may also be direct loss of money. So probably crypto wallets or anything, those could be scraped. All those come under direct loss of money. Apart from these are quantifiable, and you can put a value on these losses. But there are losses that you cannot put a specific value on. So if there is a downtime on your business, then and your clients are not able to access your service, then there is a loss in reputation, your reputation, and so does your reliability go off. So a client might discontinue the business that happens, and it is a direct, and though it is not a direct, but indirectly you will start losing the revenue from that client. And apart from that, there may be people who, organizations that are working closely with the government of India, or state governments or something like that. So you could be doing, projects for the government or something like that. So those are data that are crucial. So it could even impact the national security. So, when looking at cybersecurity costs, it is better to look at the benefits versus the cost. So you may value your losses at a certain a price point. So is it the benefit that you're getting by spending for the cybersecurity or the security appliances that you're going to deploy at your place? Is it going to justify the benefit that you're going to get out of it in case of breach? So you can always cut down on costs, but it should not be at the cost of security. So there may be several assets within the company that don't require enough security. So those are assets that can be reliably configured without any security protection. But when there is a need, there should be no compromise on the cost spent on security. So with the past decade or so, we saw a rapid increase in the digitalization. So it means that organizations that weren't in the digital stream, they also stepped into the digital stream. So there was a rapid digitalization on all fronts. So which means a company has more assets, digital assets, and they needed protection. Though rapid digitalization, since rapid digitalization also brought in newer, revenue streams, so it was accepted, more quicker than how it was before. So the increase of cyber assets within an organization also led to challenges for challenges with regard to cybersecurity. And we also saw the pandemic, accelerating it further. People started working from home, and people started using their own devices or personal devices to connect to the organization's network. So which means you would have little control over those devices. So you'll have to secure it adequately. When it comes to non-quantifiable costs, you cannot put a value on that. So spending on cybersecurity would seem actually exponentially very small when compared to the losses in terms of the non-quantifiable losses. And when I talk about digitalization, if there is a digital asset that is present in an organization and it has been compromised, then probably the revenue from that digital asset could also be impacted. So there are, when it comes to cybersecurity, there are various layers in cybersecurity, and there are challenges present at each layer. And at the core of this are your critical assets, like I said earlier, like your PII or your intellectual property, your servers, digital assets, all that come under your critical assets. So one major step here is to identify all the critical assets. So this will solve a lot of problems. It'll be able to help policy designers. It'll give them more idea on what should be accessible. I mean, what kind of critical assets should be accessible to whom. So identifying your mission critical assets would mean that you will have to safeguard it in a more, safeguard it even better than your normal assets. And for an organization, the critical assets could include your business information, your business strategies. Imagine losing out on your strategies to a cyber attacker. Your complete client information, employee information, your business inventory, your financials, and software credentials and IT credentials. Like if you have various softwares and you have purchases soft keys for that, serial keys for that, so all those could be lost. And if the organization is a a software provider, then probably the source code, all that would be lost. So all that would be part of your mission critical assets. So you will have to secure it, handle it in a more secure way. So the importance of designing the cyber security, your security infrastructure would ensure that these assets are encompassed, in the most secure manner. Also, once we have classified the mission critical assets, then we'll have to decide who has access to what. So each and every person would have a role, or based on the role, they would have either access to it or no access to it. So in one of the escalations or in client incidents that we saw, a mission critical or public facing server was misconfigured, and the entire C drive was accessible to the entire network. So even though the breach did not happen at that server, the entire C drive being accessible from the network meant that it could also be encrypted in case of ransomware attacks, and it could also be, the data from that machine could also be exfiltrated easily out. And in case of a digital asset being classified as mission critical, there should be some form of authentication or access authentication to that asset, and it should be enforced in a way that every time it is accessed, it should be there should be some form of authentication for that. And the biggest challenge in the point that I mentioned now is the mindset of the people. Like I would not wish to authenticate every time I access a asset. So I would try to find out workarounds around that. So people should also change their mindset when they are, because when an asset is defined as mission critical, you should be ready to authenticate how many ever times required. And we've also seen cases where just the example that I mentioned now. So just because it is within your network, you cannot share the C drive of your workstation. It is like placing a very valuable item. Instead of placing it within the locker inside a house, you're just keeping it lying on the coffee table or something like that. So just because data is present within the computer, it doesn't mean it is secure. Or just because it is present within the network, it doesn't mean it is secure. Okay. The next layer is physical layer. So you have defined what is the mission critical asset. Now you will have to define who has access to what, even in the physical form. So if you have a server, then only IT admins should have access to those servers. And if there is a workstation that is meant for a developer, then only a developer should be able to access the machine that is on a developer network. And they should be able to access only their respective mission, not the other mission. So each mission should be secure, and the entire network of, for example, I'm taking an example of a developer team. So the developer network should also be access restricted to specific people of that team. And like I said, if the machine is meant for you, you should make sure that you leave that mission. You don't leave that mission unattended or unlocked. And in a lot of cases, like this is not an issue now, but some time back, we found, most of the infections would have come from a removable device or a USB drive or a pen drive. So it is better to seal off all the USB ports. So, but sealing it off just for removable drive devices. So this would be a tedious process for the IT admins, but they should ensure that they do that and secure the workstations or the digital assets, so that data transfer or infections do not spread via removable devices. And it is also necessary that you should be able to physically isolate different networks within an organization. So a developer network and maybe the IT network or the finance network, they need not be on the same network. So even if one mission or one network is breached, the infection doesn't carry over to the other missions. Okay. With regards to data security, first, here also you need to identify what kind of data needs to be backed up, and based on the type of data, at what intervals do you want to perform the backup. If it is a very critical data, then probably you will have to do it on a daily basis or an hourly basis, and ensure that it is done even on the weekends or off office hours or something like that, because we never know when there would be an attack and when the data would go corrupt or be lost. And there should be proper encryption when you do a backup. And data backups can be either on a single location, or it could be either on a single point, or it could be distributed over the network. It could be either stored locally or in the cloud. It depends on the type of data that you're looking to back up. And because when it comes to critical data, a single point of data backup is not advisable. So probably you'll have to do a distributed data backup in that point. And cloud backup would entail cost. So depending on the criticalness of the or the important, whether the data is important or not, or critical or not, then you can choose to back it up over the cloud. There is also so an organization is going to be, it is going to continue to exist over a period of time. So at some point, some of the data is going to be, it is going to either become legacy data, because you might move from one form of, say a database to another form of database, and your old database is no more compatible to the newer version or something like that. So should it be migrated? Should it be maintained as a backup, or should it be purged? All that should be different, because those will also entail costs, because you are going to do, if you're going to maintain those data, then you'll have to look for spending on storage servers and all that. And there should also be, depending on the type of data, policy should be enforced. software and hardware policies, like to restrict who has access to those data or what type of user has access to those data. And any data that or critical data that leaves the organization, be critical or not, it should be all encrypted. Okay. Next layer is application layer. So depending on the application security depends on the organization and the type of business that they do. So if it is a software provider, then probably they'll have to start integrating secure coding mechanisms or secure coding methods during the software development lifecycle itself. And if they are relying on software from a third-party vendor, then they should also ensure the same happens at the third-party end also. So they have their own compliances, or they'll have their own secure coding standards, all that. And at the since at the there is a rapid digitalization, there is also going to be services that could be accessed via the internet, or so that there are going to be pronounced implementations of web applications within the organization. So those also should be scrutinized for security lapses. And performing regular audits that would also entail costs. Okay. If there are you are performing a digital business, then probably you will have digital payment methods also. So ensure that your financial applications are fail-safe, and probably instead of keeping it in-house, probably you can give it to a vendor who has better technology to handle digital payments. And not only this, the applications that are used to develop your software, or the applications that are used within the organization for other tasks, and the applications, operating systems, web applications, databases, all these should be updated on a regular basis and should be patched. So the main challenge here would be, it involves a lot of manpower to deploy those updates and ensure those are patched. And in case of a major upgrade or something like that, there would be a downtime. So this will also entail costs. So probably it should be managed at an off working hours or something like that. And in the major security incidents that we have seen legacy applications or obsolete OSs or frameworks being involved. So whenever there is an obsolete OS or a legacy application involved, there is definitely going to be some form of security lapse that is going to be present, and it could be easily exploited. So there is a reason that the OS is obsolete. So just for the sake of some application may be used in an organization. Suppose if it runs only on say Windows 7 or Windows XP, then it is not okay to still keep using Windows XP. It is either the application should be upgraded, or you should move on to a different application altogether. So this is also in a way related to people, because people would not want to upgrade out of the known set of applications or set of routine that they follow. So legacy applications and legacy OSs should always be removed or replaced. In the next layer is endpoint security. So this is one layer wherein there might be there are several factors that would influence an organization to finalize on the perfect security product. So probably they could look for a hybrid solution if the organization has people working on various types of devices or on various platforms. Then the solution should be robust enough to support all those devices, and it should be multi-platform, and the console that manages that should be able to retrieve data from all those types of devices, be it mobile devices or desktops or servers or something like that. So that is one major factor. Then depending on the the actual infrastructure of the company, which product is better suited. So if the organization has bring your own device policy, then probably an endpoint security that is suited for such kind of policies should be chosen. And there is one major factor, which is the cost per endpoint. So how much are you going to spend on a yearly basis, or for a given time frame for protecting a specific? The other major factor would be the support and response that the company that provides the endpoint security has to offer. So do they provide 24/7 support? Do they provide, in case of a breach, do they provide assistance at the organization itself, or something like that? And there is also a comfort factor involved. So how easy it is for me to push updates to all the endpoints. If there is an infection within the entire network, how easy it is to remediate that, or how easy it is to push the remediation across all endpoints. So these would be the major factors that would influence selecting a suitable endpoint security. And in case of the company having a bring your own device policy, then the policy might have been chosen for cost purposes, like in order to skip giving devices out to everyone. They might choose the employees to go for bring their own devices. Then those should be adequately secured. Whereas if it is going to be a company issued device, then it could be easily managed by the company, and it would be easier for them to manage security on those devices. But it would entail cost again. So these factors also add into choosing a proper endpoint security. And like always, there is always a people challenge involved in every layer. So suppose I have a device or a company issued device. Then if I look to install a newer application, then I would go. Then I would have to go to the IT admin, request for either authorization to install that. If it is a company-owned device, then I would have to do that. And then the IT admin would have to verify if the application that is chosen by the person who is using that workstation, if it is secure enough to be installed onto the company device. So it means that, and there are also restrictions enforced by the endpoint security product also. So all these contribute to if suppose all the employees are generally dissatisfied with all the restrictions enforced by the endpoint security, then probably that will also hinder their performance, as well as general ease of work that they would like to do. So next layer is network security layer. So network security, like how do you enforce network security? This begins at a design stage. So once when you start designing your infrastructure for your company, you would have to ensure that you have a smart design in place. So it would require a skilled IT admin to design an ideal network structure specific to that organization. And within the network, you should enforce strict password policies. So no one should be able to access other networks without any, without any password, or in case probably a two-level authentication policy or something like that. So, and if at all there are open wireless networks, not open, but wireless networks within the organization, then the a wireless network meant for desktops should not be used for a personal device. At the design stage itself, people should ensure that only specific devices should connect, even though you have the authentication password. It is available with the user. It should be restricted at the physical layer, like probably limit people from accessing wireless networks based on the MAC ID from which they connect to. So those kind of restrictions could be enforced, so that people having those passwords do not log in with their personal devices. And there are organizations that are moving to a zero trust policy. So deploying this would be a lot more tedious for the actual people of the organization. Like so every time you access anything within the internal network, it would require an authentication. So that is one way, but it improves the security to several manifolds. And adding to the network security, there are like if you have any external facing servers or anything like that, it should be properly configured with a firewall, hardware and software implementations of it. Policy should be set right. Ports that are closed or open should be closed. It should be restricted. And like for instance, 2 out of 5 cybersecurity incidents that we see are because of a poorly configured server or a workstation that is having an external facing IP. So configuring a proper firewall or a firewall policy is very important. And organizations should keep monitoring for external DOS attacks or DDoS attacks. It is like just with several policies we'll be able to avoid DOS and DDoS attacks. Whenever there is an increased inflow of traffic, make sure that requests are dropped from repeated. From a single source. If there are repeated requests, then probably cut off that source. So all these could be configured, or policies could be set for that, and ensure your server has enough bandwidth. Like there is only a specific limit that could make sure your server has enough can handle enough load, even if there is a DOS attack performed, or it could handle enough number of requests. And when you are configuring any network appliance, make sure you don't leave it in the default setting. So configure it optimally. ensure that specific MACs only connect to specific networks, and secure it in a proper way, like seal off ports that aren't required, so that adds an additional layer of security. But all these require IT manpower and proper IT knowledge. And there could also be so even if one workstation or one machine is compromised, it should not affect all the other machines within the network. So deployment of proper threat management systems, unified threat management systems with IDS and IPS solutions should be deployed within the organization, like so that SMB attacks or brute forcing attacks within the organization doesn't happen. So this is the most susceptible layer. Like in all the layers that I mentioned, I've once or twice mentioned the people to be the weak link. So like if there is a security, if there is a new security policy enforced, then probably people are going to resist it. So I would probably have an easier way to access. I've had an easier way to access a specific asset until now, but now there is a security policy enforced, so that I'll have to type in a password, use an OTP or something like that, use multiple factors of authentication to access a specific resource. People would get irritated, but they should learn to accept it, and just for the security, they should be able to overcome that. And and the biggest challenge with people is like unlearning the easier way that you have learned until now. So that is one major factor here. And there are also people can also make mistakes, and people can break the rules either knowingly or unknowingly, or they can be deceived easily. Like just a simple crafted email could deceive a user, and they could execute a malicious document or a malicious attachment, or they could probably not be aware at all. So there are people who would call up the IT saying an important document is not opening up, without realizing that it is not actually a document, probably a malware or something like that. So it is better to educate people to overcome these simple mistakes or simple errors that they might do. So if there is and whenever there is data that is leaving the machine, they should be doubly careful whom they are sending it to, because a simple change in the email address would mean that the data leaves the organization and lands somewhere else. And to infiltrate a well-crafted email could probably with a malicious document could be easily spoof, or could easily trick a user into executing the attachment. And for now, like, emails are the popular communication channel. So in most cases that we have seen, they are the initial infection vectors. So securing each and every, having a proper email client, or configuring the email properly, or educating people on what attachments to open on would help long term. So mostly as and when I've discussed various layers, I've told about based recommendations that for each layer, or mitigation methods probably I would have discussed. So in case of software, probably you should rely on known sources. Like for instance, if it is an for a desktop, then probably you should not use pirated software. Or if it is a mobile device, then you should probably download it from the specific app store or something like that. And the software that you use on a system should be updated regularly. and the patches should reach the endpoints on time. And in case of so with the work from home culture, like you should ensure that RDPs enforce multi-factor authentication, and default RDP port should be reconfigured. And whenever you're opening an attachment, you could never be careful. Like it is okay to check twice, thrice, any number of times before opening that. Once you open that, and if it is a malicious document, then you are gone. So it is always okay to verify, even if you think that the source, a person within your organization has emailed you something, and you suspect it to be malicious or suspicious, then you could probably verify with them if they have sent an email actually before opening the actual document. So it is okay to validate with the sender whether they have sent such an attachment or not. And for mail servers, instead of deploying in-house servers, it is okay to opt for cloud-based services that are provided by various vendors. So so that you could cut down costs on deployment, and the maintenance also need not be done from your. And if there are any alerts triggered from your security solutions, please do not ignore that. And it is not always the responsibility of the IT people or the security guys to enforce or to give you your cyber security or secure cyber environment. It is every person's responsibility and effort that they put into creating a good secure work environment. And whatever assets that are present within the organization, perform internal VAPT, or hire people from outside perform VAPTs on the internal and specifically on the external facing infrastructure. Okay. So as long as the organization is present, there is going to be cybersecurity. It is going to be a challenge, and we may take all the steps that we that we could, but these are just man-made fortresses, and man-made invasions could easily breach man-made fortresses in one way or the other. But even I mean, like even though there is a breach that is waiting to happen, it should not be because of a security lapse. It could be for various other reasons, but it should never be for a security lapse in the planning stage or in the deployment stage.